What's doing, everybody? Today is Tuesday, January 27th. Action-packed show for you guys today. I've got the great Roger Stone. I've also got three lawmakers, Congressman Eric Burlison, Congressman Rich McCormick, Congressman Brandon Gill, all joining me on the podcast today. I'm AlecLace. This is the AlecLace Show.
The American family is under attack. Parents are the underdog of this nation. Your children are being indoctrinated. That's right. Your children. They do not belong to the state. They do not belong to the school system. They belong to you, the parents, as a blessing from God our Father. So let's preserve, protect, and fight for the American family together. You're listening to the AlecLace Show. The future is family.
All right, welcome everybody to the AlecLace Show. I'm happy and honored as always to be here with you guys. Thank you for tuning in. If you're watching the broadcast as it streams live on Rumble, please get down there and hit that share button. Let's get as many people into this live broadcast, into the chat room as possible. A lot going on. Big show today. Roger Stone, lawmakers, all coming at you. First, we're going to hit on this Alex Preddy. It's the trending story. It's all over social media. It's all over the news, rightfully so. I think it's an inflection point. I think it's a turning point in what's happening in Minnesota. And I see Tim Walz picks up the phone, calls Donald Trump, says they need to work together here. All of a sudden, last night, we finally see for the first time, we see local law enforcement in Minnesota start arresting the rioters. We haven't seen that up until this point. We also see Tom Homan now as the man in Minnesota, which I think is awesome. I think he's the best of the best, and he is now there. And I think we can finally start to see this thing start to shift. Does Trump need to use the Insurrection Act? I don't know. I think that might depend on what we see happen in the next few days here as a result of Tom Homan going there and now local law enforcement maybe assisting. But as it comes to Alex Preddy, listen, I gave my breakdown on this. I posted it on YouTube, and it went, I don't know, it didn't go viral, but it got a lot of attention. All the left-wingers came out and haunted me in the comments there. 20% of them were talking about my haircut. But, a lot of it's funny how the YouTube algorithm works. Is the people that subscribe to my show don't even get the alerts, and it feeds my videos to people who are anti-Trump and everything else. So it's awkward how that works. But, I break down pretty much what I believe is this was a justified shooting. Now, it doesn't mean to say that Alex Preddy is somebody that deserved to die. I think it's tragic. I think one thing you've noticed that's different is that you don't see people on the right celebrating the fact that this guy died. There's nothing to celebrate here. Obviously we saw with the left, these are people that were glad Charlie Kirk was killed. They think he deserved what he got. And they celebrated it. We all saw it. Thousands of them did. That's how they feel about you. That's how they feel about me. There's no difference in that. I don't wish harm on any of these people. Even though so many of them are lunatics, they're not wrapped tight, I don't wish harm on them. And that is the difference that you see when these things happen on the left versus happen on the right. Now, you do see some, I would say, idiots that put out stupid things. Like they're putting out pictures of Alex Preddy wearing a dress that are AI and all this stuff. I think that does nothing but cause trouble. I'm against any of that stuff. I think it's stupid. I don't think there's anything funny about what happened here. I think it's a dangerous episode of what happened, but I think it was a justified shooting by the ICE agents. I think it's tragic. But we do see, and I'll break down just a piece of this because I'm sure you guys have seen 1,000 different breakdowns and 1,000 different takes on these different angles. But again, Alex Preddy is the one who inserted himself into this situation. He was part of this ICE watch. Cam Higbee busted up a signal chat that shows just how crazy these people are, that they're tracking ICE. They have license plate readers. They are organized to impede and obstruct and stop ICE and all this other stuff. It's crazy. And apparently, Alex Preddy is a part of that ICE watch stuff. So he was there because they knew that ICE was there conducting an operation, conducting an arrest, which they were. It was a lawful operation that was taking place on that street where Alex Preddy decided he was going to play crossing guard. He comes into the street. He starts directing traffic through that scene along with these other agitators that are there. These two women that appear to be there, and they are told to move back, and then that's where you see the officer, the woman who's supposed to just get off the street, get onto the sidewalk, turns to face the officer. She gets pushed. Alex Preddy steps in between the officer and her, which is a crime. You cannot do that. You cannot interfere. Alex Preddy puts his hands on the ICE officer. He engages the ICE officer with both hands. Okay? He touches the ICE officer. That's it. Now you have to go. Now you've committed a crime, and you now have to be arrested and detained. Alex Preddy doesn't like that. He resists all these efforts. He's on the ground, continuing to resist, because otherwise you have like 5 guys that are there. They would easily have this guy subdued. The reason they didn't is because he's resisting. You see him from the one angle. It looks like he appears to be reaching into his waistband with his hand. On the other side, when you look at the view, it appears that he's reaching behind his back with his right hand. You see the elbow up in that drawer, looking like he's pulling something out of the pocket, where moments ago the ICE agents pulled his pistol out of his back pocket. And at the time, it looks like he grabbed something. They say it's the phone in his right hand. I don't know. It could be one of the magazines. He had extra magazine on him. It could be that is what he pulled out of his pocket. I don't know. But he's definitely reaching. He's reaching when the gun is pulled. It's a Sig Sauer that is notorious for dry firing, notorious for misfiring without pulling the trigger. The gun goes off. Now, that we don't know for fact that is the gun that goes off. It's the most likely gun that went off. It discharged, accidental discharge, which that weapon is notorious for doing. So you have all these things happening at the same time. You have the guy reaching for his waistband, reaching for the back pocket. You have a gun pulled from his back pocket. You have somebody yell, gun, gun, gun. And then you have the misfire that happens, or a gun that does go off. At that time, all the agents don't know all these facts, as we have been breaking down in slow motion for the last 72 hours about all this stuff. They don't have any of that availability. They have what's in front of them on the street, imminent threat, a guy that is resisting. They don't know who this guy is. They don't know what his intentions are. And a gun goes off. They see him reaching. They shoot, and they eliminate their threat. So on their part of this, that's a justified shooting. Tragic, and it shouldn't have happened. It should not have happened that way, but that is the result of what happened. And again, it's a dangerous situation when you insert yourself into a lawful operation to try to impede or obstruct. No business whatsoever doing that. It's common sense. Now, people on the left call it murder. You have got to be just a far leftist that doesn't matter what happens to call this a murder. This is obviously not even close to being a premeditated murder or an execution or anything like that. So that's how I see it. I know it's been talked about. I'm going to talk to it with the congressman today. I'll talk to Roger Stone about it today. We'll get more on it. A lot of people trying to compare this to like the Kyle Rittenhouse. Totally different scenario there. Kyle Rittenhouse went to the Kenosha riots that were there on bequest of the business owners who were having their properties destroyed by the rioters. Kyle Rittenhouse did not go there to confront law enforcement, to confront federal agents. That's not why he went there. He went there because businesses were being destroyed, houses were being destroyed, people's property was being destroyed, and they were asking for help because the police have backed down and allowed these rioters to do whatever they wanted to. That's why Kyle Rittenhouse was there. He wasn't there to agitate police. And the moment that Kyle Rittenhouse came and confronted police, he immediately put his weapon down and put his hands up and walked to them in a submissive manner. I mean, that's obviously clear from every angle of the video with Kyle Rittenhouse. So that's a completely different story there. So I know that tensions are high, and these people that keep doing this and keep tracking ICE, you don't see this happening in all these other states. It's only happening in Minnesota because they keep doing this to interfere and agitate and assault ICE officers. And you have to remember, keep that in mind too, ICE agents have come under assault. It's like I don't know how many 1,000% uprise in attacks on ICE officers. They hear it. They see it on social media. They're being doxxed. They're being followed. So you already have a high test situation happening. They have no idea what this guy is. And again, people say, oh, he was unarmed when he was shot. How in the world do the cops know there that he's unarmed? How do they know he doesn't have a secondary weapon? How do they know that? They have no idea. So they have to take the threat seriously. They did, and unfortunately, this man lost his life. Now, I want to, real quick, before I start bringing the guests on, I wanted to turn my attention here. In Georgia, you had students that did a walkout of school to protest ICE operations, right? So they had, obviously these kids didn't make this up themselves. Radical left-wing teachers put them up to this. The kids are just like, yay, we get out of school, whatever it is. So they have them carrying signs. They walk out of school in protest of ICE. Now, what's interesting and what's crazy is that they didn't do it in protest of the illegal aliens that are in ICE. To say we want these people out of our neighborhoods, because in Georgia last week, you had an illegal alien accused of raping an 11-year-old girl at knife point. Now, that's bad. What makes it even worse is that he did it and made the 10-year-old sister watch him do it. Illegal alien in Bullock County, Georgia, accused of viciously raping an 11-year-old girl at knife point in her home in front of her 10-year-old sister, whom he also threatened with a knife. It's this guy, Kenneth Marino Guzman. He's a 26-year-old illegal alien from Mexico. He's been charged with rape, statutory rape, aggravated child molestation, aggravated sodomy, first-degree cruelty to children, first-degree home invasion, false imprisonment, burglary, aggravated assault with a knife, possession of a knife during a crime. This is a guy who came into the country illegally. He doesn't belong here. He should have been out of this place. This is exactly what ICE is trying, the element that ICE is trying to get out of our country. So this guy, you've seen all of the Democrats talking about how their heart is broken about the kid with the bunny ears and all of this stuff. You saw all of the fake outrage. You saw all the fake crocodile tears over it. Have you seen any for this 11-year-old girl in Georgia who was raped in front of her 10-year-old sister? Have you seen any Democrats out there whose heart was broken over the story? You have not, because they don't care. If they did care and they were being honest, especially in Georgia, have any Democrat Georgia lawmakers or any officials come out and denounced this, talked about how they were heartbroken? Absolutely not. But this is the guy, Kenneth Marino Guzman. This is the guy that the students in Georgia walked out of the school to stop ICE from arresting. Keep that in mind. Never forget that fact. This is the guy that they're trying to stop ICE from arresting. And it makes me sick. These are children that walked out that were about the same age as this girl who for the rest of her life is completely destroyed. Along with the sister and the parents and that family. Destroyed. And they don't even care. And it's not like this guy is a one-off. They're a dime a dozen. If you look at the stories, Democrats refuse to look at the stories. And so I have Georgia Senator, Georgia Congressman Rich McCormick joining me in a little bit. We're going to talk more about that and get into it. So we also have a shutdown looming here by the end of the week. It looks like the odds are for a shutdown here as the Democrats are going to play politics. They want the optics, so we're going to get into that and so much more. So let's do it, and let's start getting into these interviews here and break it down. Get a comment down below. Let me know what you think about the shooting of Alex Preddy. Again, sad, tragic that it happened. You don't like to see that. Also, this guy, obviously put himself in a terrible situation. And I would think 10 out of 10 times when you're carrying a loaded weapon and you walk into fear with a law enforcement operation, it's going to end very bad, especially if you put your hands on an officer. You have a loaded gun on you. You intercede into a law enforcement operation, then you put your hands on the officer. I don't know how else you expect it to really end. I mean, you have really put yourself in harm's way. So we're going to start out with Congressman Eric Burlison from Missouri. Been on the show a couple times. This will be his first time in 2026. Grateful to get him back. Right after him, we're going to bring on the great Roger Stone. We'll get more into all this stuff. So let's start it out now with Congressman Eric Burlison.
Hi, I'm Emily, and I'm at the White House with my dad, and you're watching The AlecLace Show.
You're listening to The AlecLace Show, the future is family.
Okay, here we go. Joining me now, Congressman Eric Burlison. Welcome back to the AlecLace Show.
Hey, Alec.
It's great to see you here. So much going on. I just kind of wanted to start with, obviously, everything is going on in Minnesota. Trump has now sent Tom Homan to Minnesota to try to help with the ICE operations that are going on there. We know we have ICE operations that are being successfully done without any type of violent efforts all over the country. It seems to be in Minnesota where we're seeing all this, resistance. What's your take on ICE operations, how they're going in the recent shooting in Minnesota?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's look, to the people of Minnesota, we're not having this problem in the other 49 states. And we're deporting a lot more people out of those states. Your state is the abnormality, and you ought to be paying attention to why that's the case. So and ought to be asking those questions. Why has your state become a mecca for this type of anti-law enforcement efforts? Why do you have it seen what seems to be a very highly organized counterintelligence, counterinsurgency group within Minneapolis? Why is your governor and your lieutenant governor and your attorney general, why are they all not being helpful in this process? If anything, they're fanning the flames. So I think that people, citizen of Minnesota who is upset when you've got a lot of people who may not be as to the right as you and I who are clutching their pearls here. At the end of the day, it's because your state, just recognize your state is acting in a way that the other 49 states are not having a problem.
And what's crazy too, Congressman, is that who are the people that they are defending? I mean, you see these violent criminals, child sex predators that they're pulling off of the streets. And these are the people that they're standing up for and trying to block ICE agents. But like you said, organized. Every video you see that's coming out of Minnesota, no matter where it is, the whistles are blowing, they're signaling to people. It's all this set up, organized stuff to try to get and interfere with ICE. And it's going to lead to more disasters. And like you said, Tim Walz, Jacob Frey, Ellis, these guys are doing nothing to try to, they could easily just come out and say, hey, guys, protest, exercise your First Amendment right, but do not interfere with ICE. And they could do everything they could to actually just help them get these people out of there, and then ICE will go home. Why not just assist ICE, help them get these criminals, and then they're gone? I mean, the faster you do that, the faster this is over.
Yeah, they're looking to pick a fight. I think that's the only explanation. They want to pick a fight, and this is an opportunity for them. So this is the scene. This is the place that they're doing that, and it's unfortunate. But look, this latest individual, he was part of this organized effort. He came with a firearm. Now, look, I think one of the mistakes that people on the right are having, we're seeing some of the president's talking heads making this mistake where they're criticizing somebody that's bringing a firearm to a protest. You have every right to bring a firearm to a protest. What you do not have the right to do, whether you're armed or unarmed, is to initiate an altercation, initiate an assault on law enforcement. Since when has that been okay in any way, shape, or form, whether you're armed or unarmed? At the end of the day, they're looking to pick a fight. They come there, they pick the fight, and then the world is shocked whenever law enforcement has to actually defend themselves.
I couldn't agree with you more, Congressman. I think that I am a high proponent of people carrying. I think that if your state allows and you're able to, I think you should carry a firearm with you. But I think any firearm class that you're going to take, they're going to specifically spend like a half an hour explaining exactly what you shouldn't do, which is what this guy did. While you're carrying a firearm. I mean, it doesn't make any sense why you would put yourself into that situation knowing that you're carrying while they're carrying out an official law enforcement operation, and you insert yourself into that position. Number one, even if you're not carrying, to insert yourself into a law enforcement operation, you're already looking for a disaster to happen. If you're carrying a gun with extra magazines, it's even more idiotic. It doesn't make any sense why somebody would do that. And that is the problem. I agree with you. This isn't about, don't anybody carry guns anymore. I think that's a ridiculous argument. I think you have to have common sense like I said, without the gun. You don't walk into these ICE. They stick the cameras in the face while they're trying to do arrests. It's like you're just asking for trouble, and people are finding it now. And I think it's terrible. This is a bad thing for the country, Congressman. This is like there's nobody celebrating the fact that this guy died. This is a terrible thing for the country, and they should be doing everything possible to say, hey, don't do what this guy did.
Yeah, that's right. And you're right. It has nothing to do with the fact that he was armed or unarmed. It has more to do with the fact that he picked a fight with law enforcement. He went in there and physically got in the way of them performing their duties. Look, they're having bricks thrown at their heads. They're having cars rammed into them. They're having people fire at them. What do you expect to happen whenever you try to physically engage a law enforcement official, whether you're armed or unarmed? It's a bad idea.
One guy got his finger bitten off too. I mean, it's insane what we're seeing. All right, we could go on this all day, I know, but I want to get to the other topics here real quick. On Poly Market, now you got an 81% chance we're going to see a government shutdown in a few days here on January 31st. You guys passed the funding bill. It got blocked in the Senate now. They're using this ICE thing now as a thing. Oh, now we're going to shut the government down because we want ICE out of Minnesota. I don't know. Is that the play here? What's going on? Do you see us avoiding this shutdown? How do you see it playing out?
This last package of appropriation bills that we sent over are something that the Democrats had worked with Republicans on. So you had the appropriators in the Senate, the Democrats work with the Republicans, and the appropriators on the House side. I mean, look, the Democrats in the House side cheered whenever we passed the final package of appropriations, what we call a minibus. That should tell you right then and there that this was not exactly a Republican spending bill. In fact, I voted against it because it had so much crap in it. It had dozens and dozens of earmarks that were all put in there by Senate Democrats. Things like funding, gender affirming care facilities all across the country. There's over 24 of those facilities that were being funded to the tune of millions and millions of dollars. You had one of the locations was not just an abortion clinic, but a late-term abortion clinic that was getting an earmark. So there's some real nasty Democrat earmarks that were in this bill, all under the agreement that the Democrats were going to pass it and not hold it up whenever it went over to their side. Well, guess what? They pulled the rug out from underneath those moderate Republicans who thought they could trust the Democrats. And now Chuck Schumer is saying that they're going to shut the government down until we defund ICE. So now is not the time to retreat. The Democrats think they have Republicans on the ropes because of this activity in Minnesota. The truth is we need to double down. We need to get more aggressive with the Democrats, and not in a physical way. I'm talking about procedurally. The Senate needs to force these Democrats to go back to the original filibuster rules and make them go on the floor and actually stand up and talk until they're blue in the face. That's the way a filibuster is supposed to work. But right now, they changed the rules to where these octogenarians like Chuck Schumer and Dick Durbin, who are over 80 years old, I mean, these guys should be in a nursing home, but instead they're carrying out the last days of their life in the Senate because why not? You don't have to lift a finger. So go back to the original rules, make these people actually have to stand up and talk and defend themselves. And you know what you're going to find out is that they're willing to compromise, that they're going to be willing to find any way they can to sit down and pass something. So that's what the Senate Republicans need to be doing. Get a spine, grow a spine, and make the Democrats actually stand up and talk. And if they're not willing to do that, then Republicans need to do Reconciliation 2.0. We need to, on the House side, put the funding for Homeland Security and all the rest of these bills without the Democrat earmarks in them, without all the garbage in these appropriation bills, and pass it under reconciliation. Then they won't get anything. That's what we should be doing.
Well, listen, I love what you're saying, Congressman. And I am surprised that so much of that stuff was still in the bill. These are all the things that we voted for President Donald Trump to get out of there. When you talk about this transgender stuff, it's gender affirming care, whatever it is. It's like it's amazing that they still have this stuff in there and that Republicans are voting for it to stay in there. But I like the idea of go back to a separate bill here where we can get this stuff done on our own and fund this stuff. We're not playing ball. I know I just spoke to a bunch of you guys down there at the Republican Study Committee just last month, had high hopes that we were going to be able to avoid this shutdown because of, we had the momentum. We thought it was the healthcare we were going to get, the package, and everything was going to work out. Now it just seems like the Democrats are going to do whatever they can because they want the optics of the government shutdown, just like they had the last time. The Democrats offer no plan. They offer no vision. They have nothing. Their approval rating is in the toilet. It's in the tank. And so their only thing is to see chaos on the streets in Minnesota, the government shutting down. Oh, look what Trump's doing to the nation. Meanwhile, Trump's doing everything that he said he was going to do when we voted him in there, and we're headed in a far better direction. This is the optics that they want, and I think that's why they want to play this game.
It is. I mean, this is what they did with Trump in his first 4 years. They made everything out to be painful for the American people. They made it so that you couldn't turn on any talk show or any kind of program without seeing all of this ugliness that was occurring. And the media, the mainstream media was all too willing to help them out in that regard. So I think that you're right, and that they just want to have the painful experience of having a government shutdown.
Well, and then real quick, I want to slide over here too to Bill and Hillary Clinton, who seem to get a double standard here. We know we saw when the Democrats had the ball. We saw Peter Navarro in handcuffs. We saw Steve Bannon in handcuffs. Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, same exact scenario here. They are in violation of a lawfully issued subpoena. We don't have. Is there a date? Do you think we're going to see them be held accountable for this? What's your take on that?
Yeah. So let me take a step back and kind of build how we got here. When the Democrats were demanding that we do a discharge petition to get the Epstein documents, we said, well, fine, we're gonna do more than just that. And in an oversight committee, we subpoenaed not just the Epstein files, but the Epstein estate. We also did subpoenaed individuals so we could get depositions for testimony from firsthand witnesses about what was going on. And we subpoenaed about 24 people. Of the 24, only 2 people that were subpoenaed didn't show up, didn't do anything. And that was Bill and Hillary Clinton. You had Republicans, people that we subpoenaed that were Republicans show up. You had Democrats show up, but Bill and Hillary Clinton felt like they were above the law and they didn't do anything. They sent a letter saying that they would conduct an interview without the deposition, without a transcript for you or the public to read, and that the only way that the interview would occur, it was if the chairman and the ranking member alone went to New York to Bill Clinton's house and then asked questions and were able to take notes. That is not a deposition. That's not what a subpoena is all about. It's about getting on the record where someone stands and what happened. And look, Bill Clinton has got a lot of things to answer for. He was on the plane over 24 times. He invited Epstein to the White House dozens of times. So there's a lot of things. I mean, we have witnesses, victims that said that Bill Clinton was there when they were there, that Bill Clinton saw these young underage women. We need to know what he saw and to what extent he was involved. And so for him and Hillary to not respond to a lawful subpoena that was not only passed by Republicans, but unanimously passed by Republicans and Democrats, that's what's appalling. And I'm glad to say that a good number of Democrats joined us in holding Bill and Hillary Clinton in contempt on the oversight vote. So you have a bipartisan vote for them to be held in contempt of Congress. Now it goes to the House floor for a vote there, and I'm confident that we have the numbers to pass it. And then from there, once we pass it, probably this coming month in February when we return, then it'll go to Pam Bondi for her to take action.
Well, I hope we see it. We need to see it. Desperately need to see some action here, Congressman. We've been calling for it. We want to see it. I know that's one of the things everyone's been saying. We want to see some accountability, so people pay a price the way we were paying it. And so hopefully we do see that. But why do you think it is? They never mentioned Epstein for 4 years while Biden was in office. None of the Democrats ever mentioned the word Epstein. Now, all of a sudden, it seems like they care so much about the girls that were victims of Epstein, but they don't care about the girls who were victims of illegal aliens. And I can't figure out why that is.
I think it's because if you look through what's been released, there's a lot of connection with Epstein and the Democratic Party. Look, there's a lot of Democrats caught up in this. And look, Jeffrey Epstein was a Democrat. He was a donor to the Democratic Party, to Democratic candidates. So it's no surprise that they really didn't want to talk about this. The only reason why they're wanting to talk about it now is because they feel like the absence of knowledge or the quandary makes it look like Trump was somehow involved, when at the end of the day, there's not been any evidence that Trump had any kind of involvement other than, at a social setting with with other people in the public. And look, these people were all New York socialites. So it's not unimaginable that they would be at the same fundraising receptions.
It seems like, too, like if they could have, like, say they found a document, they found 100% absolute concrete proof that Donald Trump had nothing to do with anything. Like they had a video confession of Epstein, or they had some concrete proof, the Democrats would then drop the Epstein thing like a wet towel and no longer pursue justice for any of the victims. Once Trump is off the table, they would drop the rest of the victims like a wet towel, and they would stop trying to pursue any justice for them. Agree?
Yeah, you would think. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell has been under oath and has testified that Trump didn't have any kind of involvement in that regard. So that's evidence in and of itself.
Yeah, they just like the idea of the optics, muddying the waters. Yeah. Oh, they keep clouding. Just last thing, a word on housing affordability. You put something up the other day. I seen you posted on X there where you say this isn't a market failure. This is a government failure. This housing market. They love to say the word affordability, that we have an affordability crisis, the one that they caused when they had the ball. Now they try to make it seem like, oh, this just happened today while Trump got the reins. What's your take here on the affordability crisis? And are we going to get this solved moving forward?
Yeah, look, when we had some of the experts come into my committee and talk about some of the costs that are driving up the housing, construction in the United States, it really boils down to the regulations. The amount of environmental regulations and building code regulations that these home builders are having to comply with causes the cost of a home to be at least 20 to 30% more expensive than it once was. And so we need to first address this overly burdensome regulation issue. And then in addition, we need to take a look at some of the taxes that limit the supply of homes on the market today. So for example, the capital gains tax causes a lot of investors who have rental properties to not want to sell those properties because they'll pay the hefty fee of a capital gain tax. But at the end of the day, I think what we could do as a creative solution is to waive that tax if the investor sells it to a first-time home buyer. So look, between taxes and regulations, that's what we should be looking at. Those are the things that are causing homes to be unaffordable. And then the final thing is government spending. When government spends too much money, we have to take out loans. We have to go on the bond market and take out debt. We're competing against people who are trying to get a mortgage. We're competing against small business owners who are trying to get a loan. And as a result, we're driving up the interest rates. There's no one driving up interest rates more than the federal government is. So if we want to do right by the American people, we really need to actually cut spending.
Yeah. Well said, Congressman. I know I've gone way over the time. I appreciate you talking on all these topics, and I hope you'll come back and see me soon. Congressman Eric Burlison, thank you so much for joining me on the AlecLace Show.
Thank you, Alec. Keep up the great work.
All right. Honored to have Congressman Eric Burlison on the podcast. What you guys think about the interview? Hit me with a comment down below. I didn't bring up the SAVE Act. I meant to ask him about the SAVE Act. Good thing we got Congressman Rich McCormick coming on in a little bit here. I'm going to hit him with that, and we'll talk about that. Because obviously, if we don't stop this stealing of our elections, we need voter ID. We need to have secure, safe elections. If we don't have that, we are in headed for a major catastrophe in the country here. We all know it. And we all know this is the reason why they flooded. You've never seen illegal immigrants come into the country and pour in the way they did during the Biden administration. You can't hide it. Look at the history of immigration, illegals that came into the country. It's like, wavy, zoop, it goes straight up. They flooded this country with illegals. They helped themselves with redistricting. They screwed up the voter rolls. They wanted to cheat. The only reason you don't want voter ID is so you can cheat. There's zero other reason. These people that are saying, oh, it's because black people and women won't be able to vote. You have to be none other than a retard to make that statement. So, we have to secure the elections for sure. All right, got my friend Roger Stone joining me on the podcast now. Roger Stone, I'm telling you, as all these different voices that are coming out, and now that we see that, Trump, he's got 3 years to go and he's out of office, you have these people that are podcasters that made you believe that they were Trump supporters who have turned on Trump because they see that down the line now, 3 years, they're trying to set themselves up, I believe, for when Trump is out of office. They're trying to make a pivot. They were never Trump supporters to begin with, but we see a lot of this back and forth. While you have all of that, Roger Stone is somebody you can go to and you can listen to. He's one of the very best, and I always admire or always respect his opinion, and I'm always honored when I get a chance to get him on the podcast. The great Roger Stone, he's been doing this for a lifetime. He's more knowledgeable about these subjects than most anybody else you'll talk to or listen to. So let's bring him on the podcast, Roger Stone.
You're listening to the Alec Lace Show. The future is family.
All right, joining me now, the great Roger Stone. Welcome back to the Alec Lace Show.
Alec, always great to be with you.
Well, also always an honor to have you here. So much going on. Right off the hibbity, I wanted to ask, I know that Trump, prior to this Alex Preddy shooting, was saying that he didn't feel that it was necessary to invoke the Insurrection Act. Now we see things have gotten farther out of control, but he did say that he spoke to Tim Walz. He sent Tom Homan to Minnesota. Do we still need the Insurrection Act, or do we wait to see how this whole thing plays out right now?
Well, I trust Tom Homan as the president does, and I suspect the president has sent Tom Homan to Minnesota for a first-hand assessment of what's happening there. But if, in light of these signal chats in which it appears the lieutenant governor of Minnesota was involved, Tim Walz's campaign manager, chief political operative was involved, to me that looks like organized insurrection. And that, to me, when you combine it both with the invasion of a Christian church service by Black Lives Matter, which is an outrage, a blasphemous, illegal outrage, and the fact that this gentleman yesterday, Preddy, why was he armed if this was a peaceful protest? It's kind of like that Japanese movie Rashomon, where two people can see one video and both see different things. I've looked at it a dozen times. I see a man reach for his holster and draw a gun. I'm not sure how others cannot see that because I've seen it with my own eyes. So in light of all this, but particularly in light of the comments yesterday by our mutual friend James O'Keefe, this is not some indigenous, spontaneous, peaceful protest. This is a well-oiled, well-funded, well-organized paramilitary insurrection. And therefore, by definition, I think the president has to consider overwhelming force in the exerting the Insurrection Act of 1807. That is, as you know, Alec, that's the one exception within the Constitution and within the law where the president can use American military, uniformed military on U.S. soil. And I think the level of violence and the danger here could indeed justify it.
Well said, Roger. And these Democrats are allowing it to happen. They're encouraging it to happen, and they're fanning the flames for it. But like you said, Cam Higbee exposed the signal chat. They shut it down. I think he said now they opened up another signal chat that's going on. But these are lots of people that are organized, and their only goal is to impede, assault, obstruct these ICE officers, to dox them. And it's a dangerous game they're playing. And like you said, this Alex Preddy, it's one thing, I support your right to carry. But if you are carrying, why in the world would you insert yourself into an ongoing investigation, a law enforcement operation? It seems like every law-abiding gun carrier would know, hey, I'm carrying a loaded weapon here. I'm not stepping foot anywhere near a law enforcement operation. Once you do that, you put yourself and everybody else's lives in danger.
Well, also at the same time, violating Minnesota's concealed carry law because he had no ID on him, which tells you a great deal, in my view. Let's also recognize that to a great extent, this is serving as a distraction to the multi-million dollar fraud that has taken place on the American taxpayers involving Minnesota and these Somalian nonprofits and NGOs, where I saw a great review report by an investigative journalist who visited 26 of these child care centers on one weekend, 3 times a day, morning, noon, and night, never saw any children, never saw any adults. So to a great degree, I think Tim Walz is trying to use this as a distraction. But when you equate what ICE is doing on the ground, where 70% plus of those who are being arrested have criminal records either in their nation of origin or here in the United States, where some of them have charges pending on them, others have convictions. When you equate that to Nazi Germany and Anne Frank, that is a rhetorical excess, which tells me that the question that needs to be asked here is, what did Tim Walz know and when did he know it?
Well, it's a great question because we saw Tim Walz announce that he dropped his bid for re-election right after the Nick Shirley video dropped, exposing all this fraud that was going on. So he looked like he was down and defeated. And now all of a sudden, by coincidence, Minnesota's in the spotlight now with chaos going on and the shootings that had happened. All of a sudden, he looks like a new man up there. He's got a new thing to focus on here to take complete attention away from the fact that there was hundreds of millions of dollars in fraud going on under his watch.
It is the tactic of diversion. They're trying to divert our attention from it, but it's a very dangerous one. I was really shocked and disturbed by O'Keefe's comments yesterday. Spotters in various hotels, spotters in virtually every neighborhood, including outside of Minnesota. That is particularly troubling, but it demonstrates that this is a well-financed, well-organized, paramilitary type insurrection, precisely what the Insurrection Act is meant to deal with. So I think the president has to consider it. I trust his judgment as to whether it is warranted. I don't think he's looking at the politics of this, because the first responsibility of the president of the United States is to protect the safety and security of the American people. He has that solemn responsibility. And what we see here is not a spontaneous, peaceful protest. It is very much akin to the BLM Antifa riots of 2019 and 2020, where the president decided to leave it up to governors like Tim Walz, who delayed in mobilizing the National Guard and whose wife said she loved throwing the windows open in the morning and smelling Minneapolis burning. She thought that was somehow cool. This is very dangerous. It also reports that Walz has mobilized the Minnesota National Guard, but essentially what they're doing is protecting the protesters and distributing hot coffee and donuts to them. Not exactly what I think the founding fathers had in mind.
Yeah, no, we saw those videos coming out too. Yeah, and yeah, Tim Walz's wife likes to smell the touch tone of the moment that's going on. What we dodged a bullet by not having that guy anywhere near the White House. But to your point about the church invasion, you had an activist, a left-wing judge that released Nakima Armstrong and Chantel Allen, 2 Black Lives Matter, insurrectionists or whatever you want, domestic terrorists. These people stormed into a church. Don Lemon on hand to record the whole thing. How he sidestepped all this, I still don't understand. I guess the judge wouldn't sign off on that. But these people now, they're back out there. They're back out on the street. And it seems like justice won't be served in this. Meanwhile, they disrupted a church service over it.
That is outrageous, blasphemous, and highly illegal. I agree with Harmeet Dillon. Everyone involved in that should be prosecuted. It's outrageous that a left-wing activist judge put the 2 perpetrators of this, the 2 ringleaders, back out on the street. It's equally outrageous that a federal magistrate refuses to charge Don Lemon. Again, the judicial branch of our government has become completely weaponized, had become completely politicized, and judicial tyranny could be the single greatest impediment to President Trump carrying out his mandate from the American people to make our neighborhoods and communities safer again.
And we all watched as you had armed officers show up and storm your house to arrest you with the full CNN crew on hand to capture the moment. And we don't see that type of response from when these people illegally stormed into this church and disrupted the service. We don't see when they were getting arrested. We don't see the CNN cameras. We don't see any of that type of attention going on towards there. It was all just in the one way. They used the Department of Justice to go after their political enemies. And now they're saying, well, Donald Trump shouldn't be allowed to do this.
It's ironic you bring that up because it was actually 7 years ago yesterday that the FBI stormed my home. What I find curious is the fact that James Comey, the FBI director, and I were both charged with the exact same crime. The difference is he's guilty and I wasn't, notwithstanding the Soviet-style show trial that I went through and the fact that the judge in that trial withheld exculpatory evidence that proved that I was not guilty. Putting that aside, why was Comey allowed to wait 10 days and then turning himself in private? Never mind CNN cameras. So it's a two-tier justice system. We see it writ large in Minnesota. And I frankly think things are going to get worse, unfortunately, before they get better.
We also see Bill and Hillary Clinton are allowed to just sidestep the subpoena and not show up. And we don't see any type of repercussions for them, although we know it happened on the other side when they had control of the Department of Justice. And I don't know why they haven't set a date and to take them into custody, because that's the things we need to happen. We desperately need to see some type of accountability on the other side here.
Well, I mean, we've seen this before. Eric Holder refused a congressional subpoena regarding the Fast and Furious investigation, paid no penalty. Peter Navarro, they arrest him broad daylight. They shackle him. They humiliate him. Jeffrey Epstein, he was taken down at the Teterboro airport. The FBI agent threw his coat over the handcuffs so that Jeffrey wouldn't be embarrassed. Two-tier justice, indeed.
No doubt. And I know my time runs out here. I want to ask you about now the Democrats are going to shut the government down. They have till the 31st here. It looks like, that's what's going to happen. And they're withholding funding from ICE to block ICE or DHS funding in order to use that. But they want this government shutdown, in my opinion. They want the theatrics of this. They want the optics of this, just like they want the optics of the chaos that's going on in Minnesota. Because while Trump is firing on all cylinders, accomplishment after accomplishment in his first year of his second term, they need something to distract from that, and this is their play, and it looks like we're going to hit another government shutdown. How do you read it?
I agree with everything you just said, but let's not pretend that the president is without cards. If the president declares a national emergency, and if he enacts the Insurrection Act, their funding nonsense really means almost nothing. They're playing with fire here. I don't think the American people are with them. I don't think, if you look at the polling, most Americans favor the deportation of dangerous illegal criminals who are here illegally. And that's who is being detained, and that is who's being deported. The left keeps trying to pretend these are peaceful U.S. citizens who are being menaced. There is no evidence that that is the case.
And it's obviously they look at it differently, because when Barack Obama was in charge, he was deporting people. He didn't give them any due process. He deported them. There were no protests. You had 63 people died in ICE custody while Obama was president. There was no uprising. There was no uproar. It's only because President Trump is doing it. That is the only difference here. And that is why the left has turned on their media machine and all of these lunatics out there trying to cause chaos.
I could not agree more. Barack Obama's post on social media today saying that the ICE program is somehow illegal or unconstitutional. This coming from the president who deported 2.6 million people, more people than any president in recent history. So again, it's the two-tier justice system and the hypocrisy of the radical left.
Well, Donald Trump said in Davos there that he has people are going to be prosecuted for stealing the 2020 election. He alluded to that there. I would love to see some accountability for the Russiagate, obviously for the rigged election. But this is where I say we desperately need to see an arrest, something happen, somebody held accountable. Do you think we see it this year?
I certainly pray that we do. There's more than enough evidence, thanks to Tulsi Gabbard and the fact that she finally declassified all the documents that demonstrate that the Russian collusion hoax was the greatest single dirty trick and the greatest single abuse of power in American history. It was a monumental fraud in which they used fabricated evidence, the Steele dossier, and the false claim that the
Yeah, great stuff, Roger. On a lighter note, to get you out of here, Melania Trump movie is out now and available. Trump's promoting it. Have you had a chance to see the film? If so, what's your take?
I have not. I was invited to the premiere in Washington, where, as I'm sure you know, they also have a record snowstorm. So I couldn't make it. But look, I've known Melania since before she and the president were married. I knew them very well when they were dating. They were friends with my wife and I. She's an enormously talented woman. She speaks multiple languages. She's a kind, gentle, cultured individual. She's a great mother. She's a great wife. She's a great model, first lady for the citizens of this country. I love her. And I still think it's outrageous that they've never had her on the cover of Vogue.
Yeah, a disgrace for sure. Well, listen, right now I know we have so many MAGA voices competing with one another, throwing mud at one another. You have been and always will be one of the best voices out there. You have great analysis on all this stuff. Thank God we have you. You're a blessing to the movement. Tell the people where they can go listen to the Stone Zone.
Sure. You can listen to me every day at 8 p.m. Eastern Time by going to WABCRadio.com. That's WABCRadio.com. And you can read all about whatever I'm up to by going to StoneZone.com, where you can subscribe for absolutely free.
Always an honor, Roger. Come back and see me soon.
Thanks, Alec.
All right, honored to have Roger Stone on the podcast, one of the very best in the business. Always a pleasure. And one of the things, I wanted to say there on his point, I didn't bring that up earlier, that Alex Preddy didn't have his gun permit on him. This is, again, according to the sources here. Alex Preddy didn't have his permit on him to carry his gun or ID on him, which is a federal crime, or it is a crime in Minnesota to do that. So he was unlawfully carrying the weapon, even though he had the permit for the concealed carry. He didn't have the permit on him, and you have to have it on you. Now, I tried to look, as here in Jersey, I have the concealed carry permit. You have to carry it on you. They do allow you to have a digital copy of it in Jersey on your phone. I don't trust that, but I do have it on my phone just in case that sometime I would forget it. But I do have, to carry the permit on me. In Minnesota, they do not have digital permit allowed, where you're not allowed to just, because I originally thought, well, maybe he didn't have the permit on him, but he had it on his phone, and that would be a different story, so he would carry it that way. But apparently in Minnesota, that is not allowed. You are not allowed to have a digital picture or copy of the permit on your phone. You must have the printed out laminated card on you at all times. So that's another thing there. Because you'll have lefters, so he deserved to die for that? No. But it's another piece of the pie here that does matter. You're unlawfully now carrying a weapon into a law enforcement operation, which is making matters even worse. All right, so let's go to Georgia, where I told you earlier today that yesterday you had students walk out, protest ICE. We got Georgia Congressman Rich McCormick joining me on the podcast. We'll get into that. We'll ask him about the SAVE Act, shutdown, and more. Let's bring him on the podcast.
You're listening to the AlecLace Show. The future is family.
All right, joining me now, Rich McCormick. Welcome back to the AlecLace. Let me start that over. All right, joining me now, Congressman Rich McCormick. Welcome back to the AlecLace Show.
Great to be with you today. Appreciate you having me on.
Always an honor to speak with you. I wanted to start out here. We know the ICE protests have gotten out of control in Minnesota, but in your state over there in Georgia, You just had students that walked, not in your district, I think it was like District 12 or something like that, but you had students walk out and protest ICE. Obviously, these radical teachers put them up to this. These kids see it as a free day out of school. Yet in Georgia, you just had an illegal alien who was arrested for raping an 11-year-old girl and forcing his 10-year-old sister to watch. Now, the kids weren't protesting that illegal alien. They were protesting the people that were trying to arrest that guy. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, this is very similar to what happens with the Gaza protests. When people only see one side of an issue, when they're not educated, they get outrageous. You realize people don't protest Hamas. People don't protest Hezbollah or the Houthis. People don't protest people that are beheading people overseas. And yet they protest the Israelis when they go against an invasion of their country on October 7th. Same thing here. They're not protesting the people who are in jail, who came here illegally to begin with. And when I say in jail, it takes a lot to be put in a jail in a sanctuary city when you're here illegally. That means you've done some crimes. The fact that they haven't been prosecuted so far, that they're saying they haven't received due process. You don't get the same due process as a non-civilian, non-citizen. The fact that these kids don't understand that, they don't understand how these people got in jail, the fact that these cities are not working hand in glove with ICE agents to get rid of people who are absolutely criminals is outrageous. But that's why the conversation had to be had. That's why we have to actually tone down the rhetoric, make sure we're having a conversation. One of the things I love is President Trump is actually reaching out to those mayors, reaching out to the governor, who not only be very friendly, but they're having good, productive conversations. And I think we're seeing the benefit as a result.
Well, just to go back to your analogy there with Israel and Palestine, it's almost like that way that entire argument is framed is, do you want to see Israeli babies die or Palestinian babies die? You have to pick one. Which babies do you want to die? And I think it's a ridiculous argument. It's the same thing here. Do you want to see protesters die or ICE agents die? I don't want to see either one. The difference is on the left, they are calling for ICE agents to die. We've seen videos when they did the No Kings rally, the guy saying, we have to turn the guns around on ICE. You see when Charlie Kirk died, they celebrated it. That is the difference in these arguments. They want you, they want us dead. The ICE agents gone and attacked and assaulted. Where we're saying it's tragic that this guy Alex Preddy died and Renee Good died. No one's celebrating that on our side, okay? And I think that's the major difference you see when these things pop off one way or the other.
That's right. The radicalization, where people get to justify the most evil and heinous things because we're the bad guys. That's why they label us SS. That's why they label us horrific titles, so that they're justified in their violence and their hateful feelings. They have to rewrite history in order to feel what they feel and feel like they can cheat. They can cheat to overthrow a government. They can cheat in elections. They can do anything because they're going against something evil that they've labeled evil, rather than having a difference of opinion that's totally justifiable and something where our society is based off of, that we're not a cult, that you can disagree even inside of our own parties. They would rather have us literally be evil that they need to smite from the earth, and that's why they justify their horrible ramping up of violence and hateful rhetoric.
And it does seem like you have normally people that you would think would be normal in your society. You know, this guy was a nurse. Renee Good was, I don't know, a poet, or I don't know what she did for a living. But it's like you would think these would be normal people in our society. And all of a sudden, they're out there putting themselves in between official federal agents as they're making an arrest. And you think, why in the world are you doing that? And this guy, Alex Preddy, he's doing it while he's carrying a weapon. He's inserting himself into a hostile environment. For what purpose? I mean, what is his plan? To stop them from doing what they're trying to do, make the arrest of an illegal immigrant? It really boggles your mind to think what got these people to that point. But it has to be, as you say, this radicalization, this brainwashing that they've been talked into to think that they're actually fighting the Nazis and the Gestapo. You have this one woman, her hand got blown off because she tried to pick up one of the flashbangs that was there on the street, and it blew her hand off. And then they're running around going, medic, medic, as if they're in as if they're storming the beaches of Normandy. These people are all twisted in the head, Congressman.
You know, it's interesting. I've actually had a couple of people. One was a nurse I served with in Afghanistan, sent me some very concerning thoughts on this. I had a really good conversation with her, and now she's actually, okay, yeah, I get it. And I trust, as long as we see the right end results and a totally transparent investigation. We had a really good conversation. I have another buddy who's a Marine rugby guy, pretty conservative guy in general, but trying to make comparisons between ICE and SS. really concerning thought process that they're not being reasonable. And that comes directly from the media. When they spin it in a certain way, they're trying to get clickbait. They're trying to create hatefulness out there because it sells papers, unfortunately. The more extreme we get in our rhetoric, the more it sells papers. And that's what's really driving this, in my opinion. And we're not having a good conversation, because if we were, we'd be talking about deporting criminals who are rapists, murderers, drug traffickers, some of the worst people in society, rather than actually demonizing these people who are following laws, enforcing laws, and actually even protecting those illegal immigrants in their own societies that are kind of closed off from the rest of us. They are really preyed upon by some of these people that are in jails right now we're trying to deport.
Good point, Congressman. And also, too, you had Tim Walz, I think it was yesterday, maybe the day before. He starts talking about Anne Frank. He's invoking like the Holocaust into this thing and saying it's just like you say, you call them the Gestapo and you call them Nazis. The only reason to do that is to get people to get riled up to it. Wouldn't you want to attack them then if you believe that they're Nazis? If you think Anne Frank is now hiding in her house because of these people? Yeah, we have to stop them. And that is what is turning up the temperature. But at the other side of their mouth, they're saying we have to tone down the temperature. Minnesota love and Minnesota joy. And then at the other hand, yeah, these are SS agents. They're in the neighborhood. We're lovely people. And they just say it like that. And the only thing they're doing is putting a bullseye on the agents' backs, but also on the protesters. Now you have two that died because they thought somehow they were saving the planet. And more are going to get hurt unless Tim Walz and these other people come up and say, hey, guys, knock it off. Get out of the way. Stand there and protest with your sign. Do not approach these ICE officers as they're doing their lawful job, and you can eliminate all this nonsense.
It's interesting. I don't think most of the people who aren't paid operatives, and there are several of them, they're actually people that feel like they kind of missed their moment in time. Like they missed the walk across Selma Bridge. They feel like they're sticking up for somebody who's being overburdened or being unfairly treated. They think they're doing the right thing, but they're not seeing the big picture. And that's where we have to be excellent messengers. Make sure we understand what this is about. This is about criminals. This is people who are robbing us of billions of dollars per state, by the way. And actually, Governor Walz was actually admitting, we got problems here and we got problems in other states. This is the tip of the iceberg. But having that conversation, not making it hateful, making it factual, but these people who are actually marching around thinking that they're standing up for the next oppressed demographic in America, they're missing the point. That's why it's very important that we don't get too overcarried on this too. But by the way, we're losing a lot of Hispanic demographics in voting in this next primary if we're not careful in the way we phrase this. If you've been here for 30 years, you're employing 15 people, your son's at MIT, and you're married to an American, probably not a good place to start on deportation. But we can have that debate all day long. At least that's a sane conversation. But nobody should be debating when we go into jails in sanctuary cities to actually deport these people when those people in those cities are not even allowing us to have access to those criminals.
Well, that's another good point. And I also think, too, about the Hispanic vote. I think the reason why Trump did so well with this Hispanic vote this time around is because the Hispanics that are here legally feel like as they're watching all these people come in illegally, they are against it more than anybody else. So I think that's why he did so well. They were all for the deportations. That's what Trump ran on. Number one thing, secure the border and mass deportations. So everyone knew what they were getting when they voted for President Donald Trump. It's what the American people overwhelmingly voted for. The only reason we're seeing what we are seeing happen is because the Democrats want the chaos in the streets because they have no package, no policy to offer the American people to make this country any better.
Yeah, they live off of chaos, don't they?
Yep.
That's exactly what their brand is right now, is create a narrative. And ironically, I just came from a conference where we talked about what real polling is, the secret polling, if you will. In other words, this groupthink where you can think, 53% of America actually believes that we need to protect these guys, blah, blah, blah. But when you do actually a private polling and it's anonymous, you're not going to get dimed out, it's more like 6%. It's not 53%, but that groupthink. It's the reason that Trump won this last election. If you do the polling, he's going to lose every time. But there's a lot of people who actually believe in what he's doing. They don't want to say it out loud because they're afraid they're going to be demonized. They're going to be made to look like racist or misogynist. But in the end, they know what right and wrong is, and they want what's right. They just sometimes don't know how to frame it right. And that's why our message is really important.
And it's ironic that the people that are afraid to speak out and support Trump are being called fascists by the left, right? Isn't that ironic? So before I know my time is tight, I want to jump on this government shutdown. The odds on Poly Market and Kalishi have been skyrocketing here. Looks like the Democrats want the optic of the government shutdown. I want to ask you, what is your take? Do you think we see the shutdown? Also, more importantly, do we get the SAVE Act through in this package that's coming up? Because if we don't secure these elections and don't get election integrity, I think we're toast moving forward. So break it down for me.
Yeah, I agree. And we're always worried about what they're going to do if they get the Senate back, because that would be the last draw in the Senate. If they start making states out of Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico, start stacking the Supreme Court, we could lose this constitutional republic as we know it. I don't think we're in a really bad position because we passed all 12 appropriations bills. And by the way, by the grace of God, to have this many Republicans with such a slim majority, that is the most united we've ever been as a party, probably in the history of the Republican Party, to pass these 12 appropriations bills with just a one vote majority, basically, is phenomenal. Now the ball's in their court. They really can't shut down the government. They don't have a reason. Now they could say, okay, we're going to put that one out of the 12 appropriations bills to the side. We'll do a CR on that, but that would be the best they could possibly get. I don't even think they're going to get that, quite frankly, because they don't want to shut down the government. They know that that would really turn the tides against them. They have high hopes for the midterms. But we have partial vote funding the government for sure. I think we're in a really good spot to save the American people a lot of money and be as accountable as possible this time around. So once again, the ball's in their court, but I think the very worst thing that can happen is one of the appropriations bills gets set aside as a CR, the rest get passed the way they are.
Well, I like that. I mean, I've always liked the idea if we could have like single issue voting bills, that seems to never happen. We always talk about it, never happens. But there are some stuff that was in this thing that was pushed through. I was just talking to Congressman Burlison about this, that funds some of these radical things for the left. And it's like we need to get to a point where we get that off the table altogether. Because right now, as we do have the slim majority in the House, we have the opportunity to nuke the filibuster in the Senate. We have to advance here, Congressman. This is the time. Like you said, if they get control of the Senate, that's it. It stops Trump in his tracks. If they get control of the White House and the House again, we're finished here. So this is the last time we may have the opportunity. We have to advance.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing I always caution people, though, and I'm as conservative as they get. I'm to the far right of most people, but I understand the reason we voted in December to continue and get something passed is that if we don't pass something, we always get something worse. And sometimes we hold out for the absolute best thing we can get, and we get something much, much worse. And that's what President Trump pleaded with us. Literally said, look, guys, I get it. But if you send this back to the Senate again, they're going to take another bite of the apple and you're actually end up spending more money, have less accountability. So get the best possible deal you can and pass it, because if you go for perfect, you will get disappointed in dramatic ways.
Man, it just seems like such a runaround constantly with this stuff. I just wish we could get to a point here where we could finally feel like we're winning in Washington when it comes to this. But the Democrats, this is another thing that they want the government shutdown to, because the optics of this, again, just like the optics of the chaos on the street, the optics of this shutdown plays right into them, because on the other side of the front, gas prices have dropped, grocery prices have dropped, interest rates have dropped, inflation has stalled, and everything the border is shut down. Trump has done one thing after another. He set up the tax cuts, people with the no tax on tips, the whole bit. The Democrats just had the ball for 4 years with Biden, and they did such a poor job that Trump won by just he got the mandate. He won by a blowout. So that's, I think, why they want to see this shutdown. Is that really what they're looking for here with it?
Yeah, they got to distract us from what's going on, because if you look at the economy, actually, this is one of the best economies we had in a very long time. The economy is ready to explode. I mean, we could go up towards double-digit expansion of the economy. It's phenomenal growth. You look at the reinvestment from all over the world here in production. I just met with a Turkish company that's going to start production here in my office, and you're looking at from all over the world, $1 trillion from some countries. That's phenomenal. It's going to create this growth potential. The income of Americans is going to go up, far outpacing inflation, which is actually down around 2% again, which is where we wanted it. We're in a good spot. So they have to distract us from all the good things that are happening in order to win the next midterm, which is traditionally against whoever the governing party is. So it's up to us to get that message out there.
That's right. The clock is ticking, and my time is up. Congressman Rich McCormick, always an honor to get you on the show. Come back and see me soon. Thanks for joining me on the AlecLace Show.
Appreciate you. Semper Fi.
All right, honored to have Congressman Rich McCormick on the podcast. What do you think about the interview? Hit me with a comment down below. We got one more. We are not done yet. The action-packed show here. We are going at Texas Congressman next. Brandon Gill, in my opinion, This guy's the sharpest guy we got down there in Congress. He's the last to join me on the show today. Always honored to get him on the podcast. Friends with his father-in-law, Dinesh D'Souza, who frequents the show here. His wife, Danielle D'Souza Gill, did an awesome father-daughter interview with Dinesh and Danielle. Great family, a first-class family, and I think the best young congressman we have down in Washington. Let's bring him on, Congressman Brandon Gill.
You're listening to the AlecLace Show. The future is family.
All right, here we go. Joining me now, Congressman Brandon Gill. Welcome back to the AlecLace Show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Always an honor to get you on here. I constantly say it. I think you're the best young congressman we got over there. I wish we had more like you in there. Hopefully we'll get that done soon. But let's get right to this here. Everything right now is focused on Minnesota, ICE, all that stuff. Tim Walz and Trump had a phone call all of a sudden last night as agitators showed up at a hotel that was housing border patrol agents. We saw local law enforcement make arrests on those rioters and agitators. Is this a turning point in what we're seeing in Minnesota?
Well, I certainly hope so. You know, if you take a step back and ask, what is the situation that the left created here? Is they set the stage intentionally for some sort of violence or something bad to happen. So you've got sanctuary states, sanctuary cities, who as a matter of policy historically would not allow local law enforcement to aid federal immigration officials at all, even whenever they were conducting lawful arrests. On top of that, you had local officials and Democrat politicians all over the country who were egging on agitators, calling Trump Hitler, ICE agents Nazis, referring to these operations as operations of the Gestapo, and basically giving their approval of anything that these agitators could do to interfere with lawful arrests. So you're setting a stage where you have crowds of people who are interfering with law enforcement activity. And at some point, whenever an ICE agent is surrounded by hooligans who are blowing loud whistles, who are shouting threats at them, ICE agents who have been doxxed, harassed, who have been physically assaulted, something is going to happen. Something bad is going to happen. But the left set the stage for all of that. And then they're trying to weaponize the chaos that they created in order to stop immigration enforcement. I don't think the president is going to back down here. I certainly hope that this is a turning point in the positive direction where in Minnesota, where state officials and local officials recognize we've got to work with federal law enforcement officials. We don't have the ability to simply nullify laws we don't like. We're going to work with them. We're going to protect them and make sure they're safe. So I hope it is a turning point.
I think, Congressman, the fastest way to get federal agents out of Minnesota, if that is the goal that they want, the fastest way to do that is to cooperate with them, let them get these illegals, get them out of there, and then ICE is gone, and everybody goes back to whatever they were doing. But the fact that you had and all the things you set up there, you got people while ICE was Border Patrol agents are wrestling with this Alex Preddy. You got people blowing whistles. They don't know who's standing around. They don't know what is going on. So many things happened at the same time. There appears like he looked like he reached for his waistband. I mean, everyone looks at the video and sees something different. A gun is removed, a shot goes off, someone yells gun, gun, gun. This all happens within 1 second, and these people have to make a decision to save their lives because they got families too.
That's exactly right. I mean, you put these ICE agents in just an absolutely impossible position where they're sitting in this crowd of chaos. They can't hear what the other agents are saying. They don't know what kind of threat is around them. All they see is these agitators who are clearly hostile to them interfering with a lawful arrest, obstructing lawful arrest, which is illegal, by the way. And then what he sees is somebody carrying a gun. Now, you have the ability to carry a gun anywhere. You can go to a demonstration and carry a weapon. However, once you cross the line into illegal activity, you're now a criminal carrying a weapon. And that's all these ICE agents saw. They saw somebody who is armed, who is engaged in obstructing a lawful arrest. And most people, I think, no matter how well trained you are, would recognize that to be a potential threat. So again, these are impossible situations for these agents to be in, and we can't allow the left to put them in these situations anymore.
You're 100% right. At that moment, he went from peaceful protester who was carrying a concealed firearm to now a threat. with a weapon.
Right.
And that's what happened instantly when he did that. Also, I wanted to get your take on the Signal chat that we've seen Cam Higbee expose, where you have all of these people who are doxing the ICE agents. They've got license plate readers. They're showing up where they are doing these arrests, and they all descend on that area. This is well organized, and it seems like there may be some Minnesota officials that are involved in that Signal chat as well. I believe it's been shut down. It might have been another one started. What's your read on these Signal chats?
Well, I think that it's important to realize, and this exemplifies it so much, is that these are not one-off protests coming from, isolated individuals who feel compelled to get involved and try to stop, uncomfortable with what's going on. These are highly coordinated, highly organized resistance efforts where you have people coming together, planning how they're going to stalk ICE agents, how they're going to track their license plates, tracking the movements of reporters, tracking the movements of anybody who is what they believe to be sort of within their autonomous territory. These are not typical protests. I mean, this is not typical First Amendment behavior. This is an armed resistance and highly organized resistance, and that's something we should keep in mind as we're looking at how to respond to this. That again, everybody has their First Amendment right to go out and protest. You don't have the right to obstruct law enforcement proceedings, though, and I think that this Signal chat should make us very well aware of what's going on.
Well said, Congressman. And I think, too, if you tell your buddy, hey, you want to go down to the protest? Say, yeah, okay, let's grab a sign and go down there. If you say, hey, you want to pack heat and then go interfere with ICE as they make an arrest, you're out of your mind. You know what I mean? I'm not doing that. So there's a total difference. I know my time is tight. You just recently wiped the floor with Jack Smith. I loved what went down there, especially when you get your turn at him. What do we see as an outcome of this, Congressman? We constantly see all these things going on, these hearings and everything. We don't see the outcome. Do we get one here?
Yeah, so there's a couple things that we would like. And remember, what Jack Smith did was so beyond the pale. I mean, he was using this investigation to go after one person, and it was President Trump, in order to interfere with the 2024 elections. And then during the entire process, he was violating the speech or debate clause of the Constitution, spying on sitting members of Congress, including the Speaker of the House at the time, spying on sitting U.S. Republican senators, and he was using all kinds of bogus reasons to hide what he was doing with these non-disclosure orders, including at one point referring to telling a judge that Kevin McCarthy, then Republican Speaker of the House, was a flight risk, which is insane. And you and I both know that that's crazy. But what we want to see come out of this is, one, we want to expose what Jack Smith did to the American people. But two, we want to see if there was truly illegal activity here. He needs to be held accountable. I mean, I think that Jack Smith clearly violated the speech or debate clause of the Constitution. I think that he was dishonest and disingenuous at best with how he was going about getting these subpoenas and getting these non-disclosure orders from judges, and he ought to be held accountable. So what we want to do is make the case here so that if there are things that he can be prosecuted for, that he can be prosecuted. Now, that's something that the DOJ takes up. That's not something Congress has the ability to do. We can't arrest anybody or throw anybody in jail, and you wouldn't want Congress to have that power either, by the way. But what we want to do is expose this and make the case that Jack Smith should be prosecuted, and I certainly think he should be.
I think you can see from our standpoint out here, out on the street here, Congressman, where 10 years ago with the Russiagate, they spied on his campaign. We saw in 2020 with the rigged election. And now we saw in 2024 how they try to do everything possible to keep this man from getting back into power. We've never seen any type of justice for any of those things. We've never seen any accountability for any of those things. So it makes us lose faith that when we do have the ball, we do have the Department of Justice, we're not going to see anything. Yet when they have it, we got a mugshot of President Donald Trump, and half of the people that support him are in prison.
That's exactly right. And I hear that often, which is that, the Clintons can violate a subpoena, but whenever Republicans do, they get thrown in jail. So we're going to hold the Clintons in contempt of Congress. That vote's going to be coming soon. And I think, again, the purpose of this proceeding is to build up evidence for the DOJ to take and to prosecute Jack Smith and the people involved. Similarly, we've had a lot of hearings on Somali fraud in the past couple weeks. And the purpose of those, similarly, is not to create congressional theater or to get views on anything. It's to build a case so that we can throw fraudsters in jail. That's the purpose. And I think that these hearings need to be followed up with action.
Well, I do enjoy watching them. I mean, there's no doubt about that. They are, if anything, they give us some political theater and some great plays on Twitter, but we do want to see the accountability. My time is up in the window. Last thing, getting out of here. Do we avoid the shutdown? Is there a way to avoid this? Because to be honest, I don't feel like covering another shutdown. It's one of those boring topics there is in politics. Can we avoid it?
I certainly hope we do. It's funny because Democrats are saying that they don't want to vote for this appropriations bill because it funds ICE and they want some sort of reform, which they can't articulate other than defunding ICE. But the reality is we already funded ICE back in the One Big Beautiful Bill earlier last summer. I mean, we gave them $75 billion. Now this DHS appropriations bill would give them some more money as part of their annual budget, which we certainly should do. But we're not going to back down on this. Republicans aren't. I think that it would be crazy for us to give in to Democrats' demands to attempt to defund ICE or to place some undue restriction on their ability to find criminal illegal aliens and get them out of our country. So I hope Democrats come to their senses, but we'll see what happens.
That's a tall order, but my time is out. Wish I had more time. Hope to have you back soon. Congressman Brandon Gill, thanks for coming back to see me on the AlecLace Show.
Alec, thanks for having me.
All right, honored to have Congressman Gill on the podcast today. Always a pleasure. What'd you guys think about that interview? Hit me with a comment down below. Did my best, guys. Packed in a ton of guests. Sometimes you know how it goes. Sometimes one guest, sometimes no guest. Sometimes today, a four-banger. Always an honor to get the congressman to come on and the great legendary Roger Stone. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. I got to jump. Going to be much more to break down on Thursday. Make sure you're following me on X at AlecLace. I'll be back here live on Rumble, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope you'll tune in on Thursday. And that's what I got. God bless all you parents and you listeners out there. God bless our police, our first responders. God bless them ICE agents out there, our veterans, our military. God bless America. I'll be back Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live on Rumble.
You're listening to the Alec Lace Show. The future is family.